It was just past sunrise on a cold morning in Cambridge, Massachusetts. A tired woman in a faded blue uniform pushed a cleaning trolley across the beautiful stone floors of Harvard University. Her name was Mama Adaeze. She had no degree, she had no money, and her daughter was sick in a small hospital room across the Charles River. The professor who walked past her that morning did not even look at her face. He left a single sheet of paper on the blackboard and laughed to his students. What the professor did not know was that the woman in the faded uniform had once solved an equation no one in his department could solve. Tonight we will watch what happened when she picked up the chalk, and we will learn why the world is wrong to judge a mind by the uniform it wears. This is the story of the janitor who made the professor cry. Adaeze Okonkwo was 46 years old. Every day she woke up at 4 in the morning in a small rented room in Roxbury. She ironed her blue uniform with the back of her hand because the iron had burned 2 years ago and she could not afford a new one. She made a cup of ground corn for her daughter, Chinyere, who was 19 years old and very thin because the sickness in her blood made her tired in a way that food could not fix. Adaeze had been a cleaner at Harvard for 7 years. She knew every hallway on the 3rd floor of the mathematics building. She knew the names written on every office door. She knew which professors left their coffee cups on the wrong side of the desk. She knew the sound the elevator made when the cable was about to slip. She knew everything, except what was written on the blackboards she cleaned every night, for she could not read them. Years before, in a country far south, Adaeze had been a very different kind of woman. She had been the top mathematics student in her whole country. She had won a government scholarship to study overseas at one of the great universities. She had flown on a plane for the first time at 22 years old. She had walked into her first lecture hall with her hair braided neat and her shoes still new. Then her mother fell sick. Then her father, a proud man with very little money, refused to send more. Then a young man in her class said he loved her, and she believed him because she was young and far from home and very tired. Then she discovered she was pregnant. Then the scholarship office sent her a letter that said her funding had ended because of her poor attendance. She did not tell them that she was carrying a child. She packed 2 bags and she flew back home. She never flew on a plane again. She raised Chinyere alone in a single room behind a tailor's shop. She sold bread in the morning. She sold phone credit in the afternoon. She worked as a shop clerk at night. When Chinyere turned 15, Adaeze moved to America on a small visitor visa that quietly turned into a cleaning visa. She sent money for medication every month. She sent money for school fees when they were due. She sent money for shoes when Chinyere's feet grew. She had very little left for herself. But she still had the textbooks, 2 of them, an old copy of Advanced Calculus that had been a gift from her lecturer in her first year, an old copy of Number Theory that had been borrowed from the campus library and never returned, because returning it would have cost her 1 week of food. She kept them in a small cardboard box under her bed. Some nights, when Chinyere was finally sleeping, Adaeze opened the box and read 1 page, just 1 page. Then she closed the box and she prayed. One morning in late October, Adaeze was mopping the hallway outside Professor Whitlock's office. It was 7:30 in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up over the rooftops of Cambridge. The leaves on the maple trees outside his window had turned the color of fire. She heard laughter from inside the office. The professor was standing in front of a blackboard with 7 graduate students. He had written a single equation on the board. It was long and ugly. It looked like a snake that had been stepped on and was trying to remember how to move. This, Professor Harold Whitlock said with a grin, is the Lopez-Moreno equation. Nobody in this department has solved it. Nobody at Princeton has solved it. I have it on good authority that the team at Oxford threw their chalk at the wall when they saw it last spring. So, today's little challenge is simple. Whoever solves this by next Friday gets $1,000 and my name on their first published paper. The students went quiet. They stared at the board. One of them, a young woman in a red sweater, put her hands on her head. Another, a young man with a short beard, said softly, "Sir, this is not the kind of problem we are trained for." "Then you should be trained for it," the professor said. "This is Harvard." Adaeze stood still in the hallway. She did not understand all the words, but she recognized something. The shape of the equation, the way the curves bent, the way the numbers leaned on each other like tired people on a crowded bus. She had seen this kind of problem in her mind before. In her mother's kitchen, in her father's compound, in her own head on the day she sat in the examination hall for the gold medal and held the pen, and knew, for one quiet moment, that nobody else in the room could see what she could see. She kept mopping. She did not say a word. She did not even smile, but she did not forget it. For the rest of that week, Adaeze carried the shape of that equation in her head, the way some people carry a song they cannot stop humming. She saw it when she was pouring the corn for Chinyere. She saw it when she was folding her blue uniform at the end of the day. She saw it on the bus, and on the train, and on the long walk from the bus stop to her small room. On the third night, she opened her cardboard box. She took out the old book on number theory. She turned to a page at the back. She read it slowly. Then she put the book back. She closed the box. She had not solved anything yet, but she knew she could. About 3 more weeks passed. The weather in Cambridge turned cold. The first ice appeared on the steps of the mathematics building. Adaeze wrapped a woolen scarf around her neck, an old scarf that had once belonged to her mother. Her breath came out in small white clouds. Her hands went red at the knuckles. The graduate students in Professor Whitlock's seminar were tired. They had tried the Lopez-Moreno equation on their laptops. They had tried it by hand with very long pencils. They had stayed late at night in the office and slept under their desks when the work got too heavy to leave. None of them had even reached the second line of the proof. One of them, a young man named Daniel Okafor, was the closest. He was 25 years old. He was from Lagos, but he had been in Boston for 6 years. He stayed in the office until midnight every night. He ate his dinner from a paper bag. He drank his coffee from a paper cup. He called his mother every Sunday, and he told her he was doing well. He was not doing well. On the Friday before the deadline, Professor Whitlock stood at the front of his class and folded his arms. "Well," he said, "anyone solved it?" No one spoke. "Not even close, I assume," he said. Daniel raised his hand and slowly shook his head. "Keep trying," the professor said. "I will leave the equation on the board through the weekend. Maybe a clever cleaner will come along on Monday morning and solve it for you." The class laughed. The joke was small. The joke was not even cruel on purpose, but it landed on Adaeze like a small stone. She was outside, emptying a rubbish bin into her trolley. She heard the laughter. She did not laugh with them. She did not even smile. She kept her head down. She pushed the trolley to the next office. She did not look back. That night, after the building was empty, Adaeze went back to the mathematics office to finish cleaning the 3rd floor. The work was unpaid, but she needed the small extra money the night shift gave. She was alone. The elevator had already been switched off for the night. The only sound in the building was the small squeak of her mop on the stone floor, and the slow ticking of the clock outside Professor Whitlock's door. The street lamp outside the window was the only light. It was just bright enough to see the chalk lines on the blackboard. She stopped in front of that blackboard. The Lopez-Moreno equation was still there, written in the professor's neat capital letters. The chalk dust had settled on the tray beneath it. The room smelled faintly of coffee and old leather. She put down her mop. She stood very still for a long time, not from fear, from something older than fear, from something her mother used to call the small quiet before the answer comes. Then she picked up the piece of chalk from the tray. She wrote for 2 minutes, just 2 minutes. Not loud, not fast. Her handwriting was small and neat. The shape of the numbers was clean. The way she moved her wrist had the calm of someone who had been solving this kind of problem since she was 7 years old, and her father first placed an old arithmetic book on the kitchen table and said, "Try this one, my daughter." When she was done, she put the chalk back. She picked up her mop. She walked to the stairwell. She went down the 5 flights slowly, because her knees were tired. She went home. That same night, a small thing happened that Adaeze did not know about. The security guard who watched the south gate of the mathematics building was a quiet old man named Mr. Oluwafemi. People called him Mr. Olu. He had been a watchman at Harvard for 31 years. He knew every cleaner, every student, every professor who walked past his small booth. He knew which professors said good morning and which ones walked past like they did not see him. He knew the names of all 7 children of the woman who sold coffee at the east entrance. He knew everything that happened on his small corner of the campus. He also had a small secret. He had been quietly watching Adaeze for 2 years. Not in a strange way, in a quiet, kind way. The way old men sometimes watch the people who carry too much. He had seen her walk through the snow in shoes with holes in them. He had seen her eat only 1 slice of bread for dinner. He had seen her talk to her daughter on the phone for 30 minutes every night. He had watched her put her hand on her chest when she hung up, because the mother worry was louder than her breath. He had also seen her stop in front of Professor Whitlock's blackboard 3 nights before the deadline. He had seen her close her eyes and mouth the words of the equation to herself. He had seen her smile. That night, after Adaeze went home, Mr. Olu walked up to the 3rd floor. He had a master key because he had been here so long. He stood in front of the blackboard. He looked at the long equation on the left. He looked at the small, neat solution on the right. He did not understand the mathematics, but he understood the calm in the handwriting. He understood the way a tidy proof always makes a problem look smaller than it really is. He understood. He took out his small phone. He took 1 photograph. He kept it in his wallet, behind the photograph of his late wife. He did not say anything, not yet. The next morning, Professor Whitlock came into his office at 7 o'clock sharp. He was in a good mood. He had slept 8 hours. He had eaten a proper breakfast. He had even resolved a small fight with his wife the night before. He hung up his coat. He put his dark coffee on the desk. He walked over to the blackboard to rub the previous day's lecture off with the felt eraser. He stopped. His hand froze in the air. The Lopez-Moreno equation was still on the left side of the board, but on the right side, in handwriting he did not recognize, was a complete solution. Every line, every step, every reason. The proof was elegant. It was short. It was the kind of proof that makes grown men weep quietly at mathematics conferences in Paris and Berlin. Professor Whitlock sat down slowly in his chair. He put both his hands flat on the desk. He read the solution 3 times. Then he called his graduate assistant. Then he called the head of his department. Then he called the dean of the faculty. Then, very nervously, he called Princeton. Then he called Oxford. "Sir," he said to the dean, his voice a little shaky, "either a ghost has come into my office in the night, or the second coming of Emmy Noether has come to clean my floors." "Read the solution to me," the dean said. He did, line by line. There was a long silence on the phone. "Whitlock," the dean said finally, "find out who did this." Adaeze did not know that anyone had seen the board. She did her morning mopping at 5:15, as she always did. She folded the chairs. She wiped the windows. She emptied the bins. She smiled at Mr. Olu at the south gate, and she called him Sir, because her mother had taught her that respect was free. Mr. Olu nodded back. "Good morning, Mama A," he said. "How is Chinyere today?" "She is a little stronger, sir," Adaeze said. "Thank you for asking." "Good," he said. "I will see you later in the day." She did not think anything of it. She pushed her trolley to the elevator, and she went on to the 2nd floor. At 9:30, Mr. Olu knocked softly on Professor Whitlock's open door. The professor was still sitting behind his desk. He had not moved. He had not eaten his coffee. It had gone cold. "Sir," Mr. Olu said, "I think I should tell you something." "Please," the professor said. "What is it?" Mr. Olu walked in. He put his small phone on the desk. He opened the photograph. "You see this woman on the right side of the picture," he said. "The one in the blue uniform with the mop in her hand. That woman woke up at 4 o'clock this morning. She made corn for her sick daughter. She put on this uniform with her hands because her iron is broken. She pushed her trolley across the entire campus. And last night, after everyone had gone home, she solved your impossible equation in 2 minutes." Professor Whitlock stared at the photograph. He did not speak for a long time. "Sir," Mr. Olu said quietly, "I have worked at this university for 31 years. I have watched a lot of smart people walk through these doors, but I have never seen a mind like that woman's mind. She has been quietly bearing the weight of everyone around her, and not one of you ever thought to ask her name. What is her name? The professor asked. Adaeze, Mr. Olu said. We call her Mama A. And who is Mr. Olu to her? The professor asked. I am nobody, sir, he said. I am the man who watched her carry her trolley for 7 years without ever asking why. Professor Whitlock called an emergency meeting of his seminar for Monday morning. He did not tell them what it was about. He stood at the front of the room and he looked tired. He had not slept well on Sunday night. He waited until all 7 students were seated. He waited until Daniel Okafor had finished his coffee. He waited until the young woman in the red sweater had put her phone away. I owe this room an apology, he said. Last week I made a small joke. I said maybe a clever cleaner would come along and solve your impossible equation. I will not make that joke again. I will not make that kind of joke again for the rest of my life. Last night, a woman I have failed to notice for 7 years walked into my office. She solved the Lopez-Moreno equation while I was at home watching football. She solved it in 2 minutes. She used my chalk. She used her hands. She was in her cleaning uniform because she could not afford to buy herself a second set of clothes. The class went very quiet. Daniel put his head down on his desk. The young woman in the red sweater covered her mouth with her hand. I have asked her to come here this morning, Professor Whitlock said. I would like you all to meet her. The door opened slowly. Adaeze stood in the doorway, still in her blue uniform. Her trolley was behind her. Her hands were shaking a little. Her eyes were not quite sure where to land. Please, the professor said. Come in. She did not move. Mama A, Mr. Olu said gently from the back of the room. Please come in. You belong here. She walked in slowly. She stood in front of the blackboard. She looked at all of them. Then she looked at the floor. Then she looked back up. I am sorry I touched your board, she said quietly. I am sorry I touched your board, she said quietly. I am sorry I touched your board, she said quietly. I am sorry I touched your board, she said quietly. I am sorry I touched your board. I am sorry I touched your board, she said. Professor Whitlock walked over to her. He stood very close, but he did not touch her, because he understood that day something he had not understood the week before. You do not touch a woman who has carried the world alone. You stand close. You stand still. You let her know she is safe. Mama A, he said. On the day my father gave me this watch, he told me that no man is greater than the truth, and the truth has 1,000 faces. You are one of those faces. I would like to give this to you. Not as a price, not as a gift. As a promise that I will never again judge a mind by the uniform it wears. He took off the watch. He held it out. Sir, I cannot, Adaeze said. It is too much. I am just a cleaner. You are not just a cleaner, he said. And I am just a fool who took 7 years to open his eyes. He put the watch on the desk between them. After that morning, things began to change in a quiet way. The way rain falls on a roof that has been waiting for water for a long time. The dean of the faculty called Adaeze into his office the next day. He offered her a part-time teaching position in the mathematics department. The pay was small, but it was real. She would teach 2 courses a semester to students who had just arrived from countries like her own. The first course was called Numbers in the Real World. The second was called How to Think When Life is Hard. The medical insurance covered Chinyere's hospital bills from the very next month. The doctors said her blood was responding to the new treatment. She would not be well overnight, but she would be well. The mathematics department quietly created a small scholarship in Adaeze's mother's name. They named it the Mama Ifeoma Scholarship. It was for girls who had been forced to leave school by family trouble, or by poverty, or by love, or by shame. They gave it to 6 girls that first year. Every one of those 6 girls is now a teacher of mathematics somewhere else in the world. Professor Whitlock and Adaeze became friends, not the kind of friends who share holidays, the kind who share ideas. They wrote a small paper together. They called it On the untapped minds of the quiet workers of academia. It was published in a journal. It was read by many people. Adaeze still pushed her trolley every morning at 5 o'clock. She still wore the same blue uniform. She still called Mr. Olu Sir. She still called Professor Whitlock Mr. Whitlock, because dignity was something she had never been ready to trade. But now, when she passed his office, he stood up from his chair. "Good morning, Professor Okonkwo," he said. "Good morning, Mr. Whitlock," she said back. And the room smelled faintly of coffee and chalk and old leather, the way it always had. But now there was something new in the air, the smell of a mind that had been allowed to bloom at last. The truest measure of a person has never been the uniform on their back. It has never been the size of their salary. It has never been the accent in their mouth. The truest measure is the size of the mind they carry inside them, and the kindness they give when no one is watching, and the patience they keep when the world has told them to keep quiet. The professor learned his lesson. The students learned theirs. The dean learned his. The university learned its. And the woman who cleaned their floors teaches us this. The next time you meet someone in a uniform you do not respect, slow down. The next time you laugh at a person whose shoes look too small, remember. The next time you bet, with a grin, that someone cannot do a thing because of the color of their skin or the work on their hands, remember. The mind does not live in the uniform. The mind lives in the person, and the person, very often, is the one holding the broom. Pride always meets the same end. It was the professor who once bet, on a Friday afternoon, that a man or a woman in a blue uniform could not solve his beautiful problem, and it was pride that made him speak, and it was humility that made him listen when Mr. Olu knocked on his door. Pride will never learn faster than the moment it bows, and the mind does not bow to a uniform. The mind bows only to truth. This story is for every mother who cleaned a floor so her child could eat. This story is for every girl who was told by her father that mathematics was not for her, and who proved him wrong. This story is for every old man at a small gate who watched quietly for 31 years, and who said nothing until the right moment came to speak. May we judge less and listen more. May we bow to no uniform and bow to the wisdom that walks behind any uniform on earth. May the broken trolleys of this world carry less weight one day, and may the minds behind them carry us all.